Hey, what is going on? You know who it is. You know what it is. This your boy Town Biz. All right, so congratulations to Jerron Boots Ennis. Jerron Boots Ennis makes very short work out of Lima. Basically, he came in there hot. Basically, he came in there trying to make a statement. He knew that he needed to send a message to everybody at 154. Basically, guys like Lima are not supposed to last very long. At the very best, worst case scenario, this fight shouldn't go no longer than 4 rounds. And Boots got rid of Lima in 1 round, and kudos to him. You just got to get, at the end of the day, I'm not trying to hate on Boots, but you are supposed to knock those type of dudes out. You are supposed to get rid of those type of dudes because they're not even on the same level as you. Okay, so Boots did what he was supposed to do. um I'm gonna say this, and this is just real talk. Um, Now he moves on. Now he moves on. So with that being said, now the question is, what's next? I'm gonna assume that next month that Boots is gonna be in, Dallas. I'm gonna assume that he's gonna be in Dallas next month to, you know, take a look at Lima versus Ortiz Jr. And in all likelihood, Ortiz Jr., who is expected to win that fight, if he wins that fight, with that being said, in all likely in 2026, first quarter of 2026, March, hopefully being, March being the latest, maybe as early as, February, then we would get Boots versus Ortiz. But now Ortiz is also hinting that he may move up to 160. So I hope he doesn't try to renege and try to get out of this fight with Boots, because from my knowledge, this fight is already supposed to be sealed and delivered. From what I've been told and from what we've been told, the fight is a go. That everything has been determined, worked out, whatever, negotiated, whatever you want to call it. All Ortiz has to do is take care of business November the 8th. In all likelihood, I'm going to be at that fight. Well, yeah, I'm going to be at that fight. So I'm going to cover that fight. So, with that being said, I expect Boots to be there. So, you know, depending on what happens, I expect Boots to enter the ring, and I expect basically a stare down, basically as a prelude to the fight that's going to happen between Boots and Virgil Ortiz Jr. But Boots did what he was supposed to do. Yeah, get rid of those type of dudes in 1 round. Those dudes don't have no business. Those type of dudes don't even have no business lasting 6 rounds with you. Okay, you look at Lima's record, you already knew that he was handpicked for Boots to look good against, and as Boots should. So that's basically the next. That's basically how you just sum it up. And listen, this isn't an attack. This isn't an attack on Boots. I'm not attacking the brother. I'm just saying that you are supposed to get rid of those dudes in under 4 rounds. And he did his thing. He didn't break a sweat. He hit him with almost like a fadeaway uppercut when and basically that was pretty much it. Lima came in there to make Boots look good. Um, there was, without a shadow of a doubt, that Lima had next to no chance of beating Boots unless he landed some miracle shot that would have put Boots lights out. I mean, of course, anything could happen. It's boxing, but it's highly unlikely. Boots knows what's on the line. He knows that he has to come in there ready. I don't think Boots had the night. I doubt very seriously Boots had the night before the fight Mike Tyson had before he fought Buster Douglas. So Boots knows what's on the line. He knows what's ahead of him. A decent money showdown with Virgil Ortiz that's going to take place in Las Vegas. So he did his thing. Well, from my knowledge, they supposed it already negotiated this fight, that everything supposed to had been worked out. So we'll see what happens. And see, this is what I mean. They'll say, oh, well, they need to put the ink to the, paper and all this kind of stuff. But from what I've been told, the deal has already been worked out. Everything has been settled, from the money, who gets what. The location of the fight is going to be in Las Vegas. It's going to be at, from my knowledge, it's going to be at the MGM Grand or the Michelob Ultra Arena. But you never know. They could move it to the T-Mobile Arena, but yeah, the fight is going to take place in Las Vegas. So next month we'll have our answer. Will we get a fight? Now, my thing is, I'm worried that if Virgil Ortiz does win the fight, but he doesn't look that good winning the fight, then you could hear about delays. He may just say, you know what, so, I need to reevaluate some stuff, or I got an injury, and then the fight gets pushed back. Or next thing you know, you hear about Virgil Ortiz saying he's going to move up to 160. At the end of the day, these dudes are supposed to have a collision course. This is a fight that the fans are interested in. So let's get it. Now, I didn't get a chance to look at it. I didn't get a chance to look at any other fights. Basically, I missed, I really missed the beginning of this fight. I basically saw a replay, but I expected Boots to make short work of Lima. This is one of these fights where it's no rush to see this fight. This isn't Terrence Crawford and Canelo, where everything stops, or basically you make it your duty to go watch a fight like this. This was one of these fights you knew about it, but you figure the fight was gonna go how it went. Boots got the stoppage. Did he look good? I mean, yeah, he looked good against a guy like Lima, as he's supposed to. You are supposed to look good against guys like Lima because they are not in your category. They're not in your league. So that's pretty much sums it up. He got the first round stoppage. Boots is supposed to be a guy that they believe could be the next big thing. This isn't Edgar Berlanga that we're talking about. I wasn't fooled by Edgar Berlanga when basically Edgar Berlanga was getting matched with you know, those subpar, I don't want to call them tomato cans, but getting matched with those subpar boxers that we knew that he could beat. He was a dude that they wanted to promote as the next big thing, the next Puerto Rican superstar, but Edgar Berlanga didn't know whether he wanted to be a rapper or whatever the case may be, and then his fixation on constantly using the N word, so Edgar Berlanga wasn't mentally there. You see how easy Top Rank cut ties with him. So, with that being said, now as far as Terrence Crawford go, Terrence Crawford and Boots, that ship has came and sailed. Um, I mean, the facts is out. For the most part, Boots had his chance a couple of years ago to fight Terrence Crawford, and he elected not to go that route. So, it is what it is. But I'm gonna say this much: Boots has 35 fights in. You know, and I want to see Boots start fighting more marquee names. Now, at 154, is he going to get some of those guys at 154? Hopefully, you don't see this type of stuff anymore. You don't see this Cold War stuff. I would like to see Boots versus guys like Charlo and those type of dudes. There's some decent names up there, but I don't think Boots is going to have a long stint at 154. I think Boots' mission is to win a couple of titles, maybe get a couple of marquee big money fights, and then Boots moves up to 160. I think before it's all said and done, I think Boots, in all likelihood, he'll probably finish his career probably at Boots being 5'10". I think Boots probably, when it's all said and done, Boots probably will go as high as 168, maybe even 175. So I don't think Boots is going to have a long stint at 154. If I was a gambling man, I say at the very best, I say Boots probably tries to get maybe, and he's gonna try to get those fights as quick as possible. I think Boots is gonna try to get some marquee fights at 154. I think, of course, he's gonna eventually have to see Fundora, um, those type of dudes, Fundora, Charlo. Now the question is, can we get those fights made? Will PBC start playing the games that they once played back in the day where they didn't want to match certain fighters up with, certain fighters? But hopefully that's over. That's why Turkey is around. Eddie Hearn said that him and Al Heyman and Bob Arum, they all were going to, you know, try to work together. Do I see a fight between Boots and possibly somebody like Xander Zayas? Well, we'll have to see. That comes down to if Bob Arum is willing to make that fight or Top Rank. The people at Top Rank. What's up? Nah, Manny Pacquiao is not gonna go at this point. Manny Pacquiao is not gonna fight nobody like Boots. Manny Pacquiao, from what I've been told, um, that pretty much the Rolly fight is almost close to being finalized, and you're looking at possibly a January fight between Manny Pacquiao and Rolly. But Manny Pacquiao is gonna fight. It's looking like Manny Pacquiao will return in January. I don't see him. I don't see. I doubt very seriously if Keith Thurman at this point in his career would be willing to fight somebody like Boots. I just think that Keith Thurman ain't what he was like even 7 years ago. think Keith Thurman is just basically hanging by a thread. I think Keith Thurman may have one last hurrah in him, but I don't even see Keith Thurman beating Fundora. I'm talking about Keith Thurman Keith Thurman is gonna have to put everything he has into that fight with Fundora. But the Fundora fight has been pushed back to, um, well, from what Keith Thurman said, probably January. So you could get they, who knows? They might could have some kind of, they might put Fundora, Keith Thurman, Manny Pacquiao, Rolly all on the same card, which I think that would be smart of the PBC to do. Just have a double co-feature pay-per-view. I think that would be the smart thing to do instead of trying to have both of those fights take place in January. I think that would be the ideal thing for the PBC to do, is just have Keith Thurman on the undercard or Manny Pacquiao on the undercard. But people are gonna say, well, Manny Pacquiao is an icon. Manny Pacquiao is a fighter that's currently in the Hall of Fame, still fighting. So I think it would come down to Manny's ego. In all likelihood, Manny versus Rolly probably would be the main event, and then Keith Thurman versus Fundora would be the co-main event. So it all makes sense. Now, to all you content creators, if you want to, put this out as a scenario, you go right ahead. But, gotta give some props to the guy that put that out there. So that's what I'm thinking. If Keith Thurman and Fundora is getting pushed back to January, as he said, and then you're looking at Manny Pacquiao versus Rolly in January, well, the PBC ain't gonna want to do two cards in the same month. It's very rare that they do stuff like that. So probably it'll be a pay-per-view co-main event. They'll probably do a coin toss to see who will be the co-main event versus the main event. But if I'm a gambling man, Manny Pacquiao versus Rolly would probably be the main event, because it's just Manny Pacquiao, and it makes more sense. So, you know, but as far as boots go, my homeboy, he there, why why is M Media doing his thing, you know. So he out there, he doing his thing. The fight started a little earlier than I thought it would start, but I'm glad that they're getting these fights, you know, out there a little bit earlier in the East Coast, because usually when I used to be covering fights in the East Coast, covering them top ranked cards, that used to be something else, you know, covering a fight at, 12 midnight. Because I remember when I went to go see Bud versus the Mean Machine, the first bell rung at around I think the bell rung at around 12:05, 12:05 midnight. So it was technically Sunday. So, and then Bud got the stoppage, and I basically had to run out of there. I basically had to run out of there because, I was staying in Jersey. So I had to get to the last subway that go to Newark before like 1:15. So so I literally had to like leap out of there. I think I only had like maybe 20 minutes to get some footage before I had to get to, Penn Station, which is under Madison Square Garden. I'm talking about the Penn Station is literally right under Madison Square Garden. So, I had to really like I really had to do my thing, because if I would have missed that 115 train to Newark, I would have been stuck in New York till 5 o'clock in the morning. So I would have had to spend an additional 4 hours, which that happened to me before. I can't remember what fight it was, but I did miss the train, and I was stuck in New York till like till like 5:15. But no, but nevertheless, I'm just glad that the fight started around 11 something. So, Boots did his thing. Um, Boots did his thing. I'm not gonna sit up here and listen. I'm not gonna sit up here and say this is the greatest performance that I ever seen. The greatest, because a lot of times when you get, and I'm just gonna be completely honest, a lot of times when you see fighters get these first round stoppages, you really don't know what to make out of them. Is it because the fighter is that good, or the person that he knocked out in the first round isn't that good? And that's all it comes down to. So, and I hope people don't take it the wrong way. Say, oh man, you hating on Boots. Man, you hating on Boots. No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. So, just saying. As far as Lima go, Lima knew he was overmatched. Lima already knew what the assignment was. Um, he was just a hand-picked selection, out of the boxing catalog. I know they have him ranked as this, ranked as that. He was a hand-picked selection out of the boxing catalog, like what Apollo Creed did in the first Rocky movie, and that's just basically it. You know, they didn't want Boots to take any damage in that fight. They wanted Boots to look good so they could sell this Ortiz fight. Now Ortiz is fighting Lubin. So Lubin is a far. It's not even up for debate. Lubin is a far established and better opponent than Lima. Do I think Lubin could surprise everybody? Do I think Lubin got some tricks up his sleeve where he could actually make this fight difficult for Virgil Ortiz? Yeah. I mean, let's not pretend that Virgil Ortiz is defensive savvy. I mean, yes, Virgil Ortiz hits very hard, but as you've seen before, uh, Virgil Ortiz has been hurt and he's been floored in fights before. So this fight is going to be more difficult for Ortiz um, than what Luma was for Boots. Do I think Boots would have knocked? Do I think Boots would have did to Lubin what he did to Lima in one round? Probably not. I know Lubin got caught with that shot by Charlo in the first round, but that's just one of them things that happened. He got caught, and to everybody's surprise, he got knocked out in the first round. And then he did take damage. He took some damage from Fundora, but we ain't gonna talk about that. So we ain't gonna talk about that. It's something I peeped, but we'll leave that alone because I don't want anybody calling me. I don't want anybody calling me, you know, um, speaking to me or somebody hitting me on WhatsApp. Hey man, what you said? So, but I do think Lubin would have put up a better fight than, or at least tried to put up a better fight than Lima did, because Lubin gave Fundora fits. Fundora ended up getting the stoppage, but Lubin gave Fundora fits. So that's what I'm thinking. Everybody have a fluke moment. Paul Williams, who was an excellent fighter, had that fluke moment versus Sergio Martinez. I mean, that was one of the greatest knockouts I ever seen in my life. It looked like Sergio Martinez killed Paul Williams. I thought he killed him because Paul Williams had his eyes open. He got hit so hard. So things happen. But I do think Lubin would have put up a better fight, a better fight versus, Boots. So my thing is with Boots is 28 years old. He's 28 years old. He's 35, but he still doesn't have at this point, that signature name on his resume. Floyd at 35 fights. Well, we don't even need to go that route. so I'm just saying. Nah, I didn't catch it. I just Boots just looked like okay. So nah, I didn't even see Boots do his post fight interview after I saw him like get the knockout. I haven't even seen the press conference, but I'm pretty sure somebody will let me know what happened at the press conference. So, like I said, next up for Boots is Virgil Ortiz. To me, Boots at 28, 29. I think Boots is 28. He does need to start getting more relevant names on his resume. And this is why people like scratch their head and say, okay, well, who have you fought? And this is why I laugh at these Terrence Crawford naysayers who say Terrence Crawford hasn't fought anybody, which is complete bullshit. Well, some of them dudes with some of those Eastern European fighters, they do have names that's very difficult to pronounce because you know because their names are technically in a different is said in a different language, so it's not Englishized name. So you're not taught that type of vocabulary in grammar school. So you just got to be honest. But yeah, I expect Boots to be in Dallas Fort Worth, even though Dallas and Fort Worth is technically two different cities, but they gap them together because actually Fort Worth is totally different from Dallas. They're two different cities, but they call it Dallas Fort Worth. But Dallas Fort Worth, Arlington, you know, because if I'm not mistaken, Fort Worth got like almost a million people to Dallas, a million people. Fort Worth, to me, to my knowledge, has its own downtown. And I've been there before. I didn't drive all around Fort Worth like that because I was mostly in the Dallas area. I went in the direction where Dallas is because Dallas actually has two airports. It has Dallas Fort Worth, then it has Love Field. So, and we all know what happened near Dallas Love Field with Kennedy. So, you know. Well, Genovic, yeah, I'll talk about that in the solo. I'll talk about that in the solo video. But let's see what happens with the press conference, and I'll be back in an hour. So this your boy Town. I'm out.